Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. More happenings in the world of the NBA. We've got a lot to talk about. Yeah, a little bit of Ben Simmons. Probably not enough for a siren or anything like that. But Kyrie Irving, big development there. The Lakers add a two-way player. We've got a lot of roster moves as well to dig into. Keith, how are you doing, man? And let's get to it, I guess. I mean, Kyrie Irving. Now the drama has shifted over there to Brooklyn.
Yeah, absolutely. After the Ben Simmons has kind of fought with him for the top slot, for us old guys, the top of the fold of a newspaper, right? That was
That's
where all the
right.
big news was. It's now shifted to Simmons showed up. So there's your Simmons update. He showed up, took a COVID test, and then left apparently, and that's about the extent of what we know there with that one. So no siren for that. But Kyrie Irving, major news out of Brooklyn today. Sean Marks announced and then hosted a press conference after that Kyrie's not going to play for them until he gets vaccinated, as they termed it, until he is fully eligible to play. They're not going to play him, and he ran through a whole bunch of reasons why. But the reality is, one of the best teams in the league is now down one of their best players, and that's a personal opinion. I think they're still the favorites. I just think their margin of error now is pretty much gone. Now they're not overwhelming favorites over any other team.
Yeah, that's a great read on it. That's exactly the way back in the day when the Lakers were looking at signing Kawhi Leonard, when they already had Anthony Davis and LeBron. We took that approach too. When they weren't able to get Kawhi, we said, okay, the Lakers could still win a championship here. Just the margin for error goes down when you don't have that extra star. So same thing here with the Brooklyn Nets. I did think there was a great thread on Twitter, and I think, Keith, you pointed it out, by Ryan McDonough, former GM of the Suns, who explained that the Nets made the decision to go ahead and pay Kyrie on all the games he's eligible to play on the road, right? So those games, if they have a road game in Orlando, say, right, Kyrie will get paid for that, even though he won't be playing. And by doing that, then you avoid a dispute with the Players Association, because NBA teams, they're not required to play a player if they're under contract. They're just required to pay him. So it's just like if they told Kyrie, hey, you know what? We're just not going to be playing you tonight, but you're still going to get paid for your services. So I think that's probably the way to go with the Brooklyn Nets in terms of keeping everything on the level with Kyrie, with, of course, Kevin Durant gets looped in, James Harden. I think that was a smart decision there, and also a smart decision to just say, you know what, we're not going to deal with this all season long. Is he in? Is he out? We're just going to set the bar right now and say he's only going to play when he's 100% eligible to play, and until then, he's not going to be part of our practices or games.
Yeah, and it's I think it's the right decision for the Nets because now you move forward, and if he gets vaccinated in a week or a month or doesn't, at least if he does, great. It's almost like you got this bonus edition. Like we talk about when a player's coming back from injury, like Jamal Murray, if he gets back, or Kawhi Leonard, it's almost like you had an amazing trade deadline acquisition come back. That's going to be kind of what it's like for the Nets if and when he does come back. And if he doesn't come back, then you've moved on, you've built your team, your rotations and all that kind of without him in mind. And clearly, I'm not going to say it was because of the vaccination status, but clearly the Nets had some feeling of, hey, this guy might miss time. He could be injured, because that's happened several times for him, because they went out and signed Patty Mills. They went out and signed Javon Carter, two guys who can defend opposing point guards, can really fit alongside James Harden if they have to step up and play in that role, where Harden does most of the ball handling and playmaking. So I think they very smartly constructed this roster. And I mean, they still have insane depth. It's crazy when you look at the guys. I mean, my guess is now you can go a bunch of different ways, right? You could go big in the starting group if you need to, if you're playing a team that's also kind of big, and push Durant down to the 2 and or Durant down to the 3, Harris down to the 2, Harden at the 1. Or you could go with Mills if you wanted to start him. My guess is he probably comes off the bench. But you could start Carter. You could start Bruce Brown if you wanted to go that way. James Johnson could get in there. DeAndre Bembry. I mean, they've got a million different ways that they can play. And I'm not, by no means am I trying to say this is actually better for the Nets because of blah blah blah, because it's clearly not. But I'm not exactly worried about their, future here. What I do worry about is it's probably a little bit more wear and tear on Durant and
Sure.
Harden throughout the course of the regular season because you still got some pretty good teams in the East that now you're going to be probably working a little bit harder to hold off. It's kind of like we've been saying with the Lakers, with LeBron, AD, and Westbrook. You're always probably going to have one or two of them. Now you're running the risk if you're the Nets. If anything happens, you may only have one of them, available at a time out of Durant and Harden. And now I'm not gonna. I don't want to go crazy with Harden's injury history because it was really only last
It's been
year.
pretty
He's
good.
not. Yeah, he's been
Yeah.
a pretty healthy guy for the most part. Yeah, in the playoffs, he's been worn down when he was with Houston, but I think that was more just from carrying the crazy usage level. And then Kevin Durant, I think, showed by the time he got back last year and through the summertime with Team USA, I'm not really overly concerned about injuries with him. But yeah, one of them rolls an ankle, one of them, pulls a hamstring or something. Now that margin of error is now just about gone because now you're not there, and we'll see where it goes with Kyrie. It's just they made their decision and they're moving on.
Yeah, and I think that you can even make an argument on the basketball floor, they're better off for it. Like no Kyrie at all might be chemistry wise better than hey,
Sure.
Kyrie's playing today, not playing tomorrow. Then 4 days from now he's playing. Then he's out for this
Yep.
homestand, right? That kind of just whipsaw action that can disrupt chemistry, can disrupt rhythm on a team. So while yeah, you do lose that margin for error, right? You don't have that failsafe anymore of, oh, bummer, we lost one star. Hey, we still have two more. You don't have that anymore. But just in terms of team chemistry, if the option is he's in and out of the lineup all season long, or you just know this is our squad moving forward until something changes with Kyrie, I think you could make an argument that the chemistry benefits are greater than what Kyrie would have given you as a part-time player.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair way to put it. Like let's use Javon
Yeah.
Carter as an example. He's probably got a pretty good chance of being a rotation guy on most nights now for this team. And if it was your rotation guy in the home games, but you're not in the road
Yeah.
games and those kind of things, it just gets awkward and weird, like you said. So yeah, one thing I do want to say because I had thrown this idea out there on Twitter is what if they had suspended him? The way the suspension works
Hmm.
is if it's a team issued suspension, then after 3 games, as long as it's a suspension of 4 games or longer, you can move the player to the suspended list, and then that opens a roster
Right.
spot for you to bring somebody in. The Nets actually did this a couple years ago. It was a league issued suspension, which it's a couple more games is all that takes to trigger this because they're really making sure they punish you when they suspend a player. But they did it with Wilson Chandler was suspended. I think that was for performance
Yes.
enhancing drugs with him, and it was he was out, and if you remember, they cut him on Shumpert. At the beginning of the preseason, and then what they did was they came back and they came back around with, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring Shumpert back, but after 5 games have passed, because then we can move Chandler to the suspended list, and then they brought Shumpert back, and then by the time Chandler was ready to go, they waived Shumpert and moved on. But as Ryan McDonough pointed out, that gets messy
Yeah, that starts a
because
fight.
then he probably would have fought it. And that would have become a huge fight with the Players Association. The league would have got involved. And then with this case here, they're basically saying, hey, the which is still an argument between the Players Association and the league on
Hmm.
whether or not they really agreed to this reduction in pay because games missed due to COVID or
Right.
not. COVID mandates and vaccination status. Let's be clear. Like if it's Jaylen Brown or Kent Birch, they're not punishing them with salary
Right.
loss who had COVID. But with Kyrie, what would have happened is it just would have become a fight between the Nets, the league, the Players Association, and of course Kyrie himself. Of hey, wait a minute, now you're suspending me because of this and this and that. And basically, they're saying, hey, we already agreed if you can't play in the home games, you can't play. So Kyrie will be kind of much like Ben Simmons, will just be sitting there on a roster spot at $30+ million on the inactive list night after night until something resolves.
Well, and the other side to that too of having Kyrie of not telling Kyrie that hey, we're just suspending you or anything like that is then you're fraying that relationship because Kyrie and
Yeah,
Kevin Durant was a package deal, right? And so now you've got Harden in the mix as well. And from everything we've heard, the Nets and those stars, and the Lakers and their stars as well. This isn't unique, but the Nets and those stars, it's very much a partnership versus an employer-employee relationship. And so if you're going to go down that road, you could risk damaging not just your relationship with Kyrie, but also with Kevin Durant, also with James Harden. And so I think the Nets did a really nice job of walking a very fine line here. But like you said, we'll see where all of this goes. You mentioned Ben Simmons. We don't know if he's going to play or not. We know he showed up. That doesn't mean he's playing in games. So who knows what path that goes down. And now we're talking about two of the top teams in the East, two of the teams that should be at least. And they both have been dealing with pretty dramatic issues. And now it looks like both are facing not having key pieces heading into the season. But maybe that resolves itself at some point part of the way through. So there's still a lot left up in the air, and it could make a huge impact in terms of who comes out of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, big time. If you're Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, Atlanta, New York, you're Chicago, maybe even, you're sitting there kind of thinking, all right, hey, this is good for us. More the first handful of teams I mentioned there, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, those teams, because I think they're looking at it and saying, hey, we're Atlanta too, and I shouldn't leave them out. They're probably really thinking, hey, they're now both of these two teams. I mean, we forget, I think, that Philly was the number one seed going into the playoffs last year. I think that's almost been wiped out of our collective memories because of how the playoffs went for them. But those were two of the best teams, as you said, and now they both come back to the pack significantly. And that is good for those other teams in that sense until this resolves. And let's be clear once again, everybody keeps saying it. It's not going to be Kyrie Irving for Ben Simmons. I will
saw
be
that again
very
today.
Surprised if that's the way this goes. A lot of people who know a lot of things have come out and said that's not on the table. And I think kind of to what you were saying before, part of the reason why that's not on the table is you don't want to risk upsetting the other stuff. And the last thing I want to say, just to be clear about this, so Sean Marks did, which ton of credit to him. He did an impromptu press conference after they put this announcement out, and he came out and said, at the end of the day, this was my decision along with Joe Tsai, the owner of the team. It was our decision. But he did say, we talked with Steve Nash and we did talk with Kevin Durant and James Harden. And basically that's probably hey guys, this is what we think is best for the team. And let's just say if Durant and Harden were like, no, it's not, and really threw up a huge fight, they probably might have gone a different direction here. But clearly they did this with at least them on board to the necessary level of being on board. And I think you got to wonder, like, does it start to become, hey, we're going to put pressure on? My guess is too, this also removes some of the questions of, right, every time Kyrie played in a road game, he has to do media. And was it going to turn into he gets asked about it every single time and they're getting asked about it? Now a little bit, you can kind of, those questions will come up for the next probably 2-3 weeks. And then it'll start to kind of go away if he's still out. It does in that respect kind of become like an injury where you just stop asking about it because eventually it's going to be, look, they're not here. Like that's the answer you're going to get. So yeah, it's I'm very curious to see if this continues to go this way, or does Kyrie feel the pressure of, all right, I want to be there with my guys and want to go, because as much as Kyrie's a guy who can dig in, he is somebody who I think feels some responsibility to his teammates and those kind of things, at least some level. So we're going to find out here what level he feels that to them. And, and it's to all the people who jumped in my mentions and like, hey, stop giving the guy grief. It's a personal choice. Well, it's his employer's choice too for him not to play, and they're still going to pay him, the essentially bargained amount. It's just, that's going to be how it goes.
Yeah, and and it makes sense as a Nets decision. If we want to go, truly front office here, Sean Marks, I mean, that's how you handle the media and how you handle the optics around a situation is a very important part of a GM's job that sometimes maybe we don't pay enough attention to. But that statement that he made in terms of, it's my decision and Joe Tsai's decision, right? So taking all of the, whatever heat is going to be there, he's saying it's on us. But then also adding in that we did consult with these top players, with with Harden, with Durant, with all these other pieces, with Steve Nash. So that's saying, like, yes, we are incorporating everybody. This is a collaborative process. but we're ultimately the ones that made this decision. It shuts down two big questions there in terms of, is Kevin Durant on board? Is James Harden on board, right? Because you address that without actually also putting any blame as far as the one who made the decision on them. You're taking that heat, but also showing that they are part of the process. And so that was just masterfully played in terms of GMing, if we want to put it that way.
Yeah, Sean Marks is pretty good at this. GM stuff here. He's pretty good. So, all right, want to move into some other news of the day?
Let's get into a two-way.
We got some breaking, unfortunate news. Dillon Brooks is going to be out at least 2 to 3 more weeks. He'll be reevaluated in 2 to 3 more weeks. He has a fracture in his left hand. So that's a pretty big loss for the Grizzlies.
Yeah,
that just came out from the team. Just released that, so he'll be out. Reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. We are now a week from opening night for 4 teams, and then for the rest of the league, pretty much we're just over a week away. So we're kind of getting down to it. So 2-3 weeks. That's, you're talking now. Today's the 12th, so you're talking end of October. So probably then he's going to need a week or so probably to get back into full playing condition. And so that's tough. That's a big loss for that team. They've got a lot of depth there on the guard line, but Brooks is kind of key because he really does play the 2 and the 3 and all those things for them.
They relied on him a lot for both scoring and just the intensity that he plays with can be infectious as well. And so that is a significant loss for the Grizzlies, and we'll see how they manage that moving forward. We do have a signing, and it's a two-way signing. Sekou Doumbouya finds a new home, and it's in Los Angeles.
So I'm going to ask, have you already talked this on Lakers Nation, or are we getting first thoughts?
No, I actually did. I got a very, very brief video out over on Lakers Nation explaining, that this is going to be a two-way spot, that it is a bit of a setback for guys like Chaundi Brown.
I thought we were going to get first thoughts. Oh, well.
Did not, but that's okay because we're still going to dive into it here. And I got the very early stuff out for Lakers Nation, so we can go a little more in depth here. But yeah,
good stuff.
Two-way contract for Sekou Doumbouya. They did have an opening when they moved Austin Reeves into a full-time contract. Joel Ayayi, the verdict is still out on him. Who knows if they want to take a guy still like Chaundi Brown, Mac McClung, Cam Oliver, one of those guys, Trevlin Queen. You want to take one of them and give them a two-way spot. You could bump Joel Ayayi if you really wanted to. We don't know if the Lakers are going to do that yet. So for the time being, Sekou Doumbouya comes in. A bit of a setback for Chaundi Brown and all those guys for the moment, but 6'8" wing, 6'11" wingspan gives you a guy who can at least defend a little bit on the perimeter. And given that you just lost, at least for some significant time, Talen Horton-Tucker, Trevor Ariza, Malik Monk dealing with a groin injury, you probably need some more wings. And look, two-way guys can play 50 games right now, so it makes sense to take a chance on a guy that was the 15th pick in the 2019 draft.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I love this move for the Lakers. This is great, and we've been saying for a while. All right, you filled out spots 1 through 13 with veteran guys because you want to make sure, which unfortunately I've run into with some injuries and the like. You want to be able to plug another veteran guy in there versus a project. But those last handful of spots, you got to get some youth on this team somehow to at least have somebody as your developmental guys. Now, here's the challenge. If Doumbouya pops, you're limited in what you can do to re-sign him and the like, but they'll get that sorted and they'll get that figured out with him if he does it. So I think this is exactly what they should be doing with that. I'm not overly concerned about those other guys, especially Brown and McClung, because when they signed on, Reeves clearly had the two-way spots, so they knew, all right, we're signing on really to end up in South Bay as affiliate players there on Exhibit 10 deals. I think this is a good use of that last roster spot for the Lakers. I think it makes a lot of sense for them, and I think that's really smart to bring in a guy like this that you can now really kind of work through, and they still have the one standard spot. Likely that they'll carry open into the season unless they want to bring in one of those guys that they've already got on a non-guarantee just to have a little extra depth in the season's first few weeks while the others recover.
And I do want to specify, because I saw the reaction from a lot of fans around social media, and this is after what I put out for Lakers Nation. The instant reaction was, how's James Ennis feeling right now? Because the assumption was that, they picked Sekou Doumbouya over James Ennis after Ennis has been kind of campaigning to get a spot on the Lakers. James Ennis is not two-way eligible. He's got more than 4 years of service in the NBA, so therefore he's not eligible for this kind of contract that Doumbouya was signed to. And so that's part of the decision. It wasn't just this guy or that guy. It's one guy's eligible for a two-way, another guy's not. James Ennis would have to get a full-time contract on the regular roster, and that's not something the Lakers were looking to do. So that's a factor here as well. You're not comparing apples to apples when you look at those two players.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted. The Celtics just announced that Al Horford has now tested positive for COVID-19 and is in quarantine. So after Jaylen Brown tested positive, Al Horford is now in the same boat. So,
Keith, I'm looking at Twitter, and I'm going to give you a ton of credit here because we're in the middle of a show right now. You're multitasking, and you only lost to Shams on that by about 30 seconds. And that's it. And you're multitasking, and Shams, for all we know, is just surrounded by screens constantly, right? Just staring at that. So that's pretty good.
Probably, I appreciate that. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, love.
That's pretty nice work there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, and they just, basically everybody else of consequence is not going to play in the third preseason game. Sure. Have you noticed, this is a complete aside, these preseason games, they're starting to treat them like the NFL teams do, but not in the same timing, right? NFL teams, nobody plays in the first game, nobody plays in it's like the second and third games are like, all right, everybody's going to sit out, and then it's like, well, we'll figure it out from there. So, and it
varies team by team too. Like different teams are picking different. It's not like everybody's the third game. Some teams it's the third game, some it's the fourth, and so you just don't know who's going to do what on any given night.
One always was the one where it's like, all right, none of the main guys are going to play. Yeah. We'll have these other guys go. So sorry, I'm just typing up a quick thing.
No worries.
And then I'll let you carry the show.
I'll move us along. The next thing we got to get to: Terance Mann for the Clippers signs an extension, 2 years. $22 million for him. If you've been watching the Clippers all in preseason, you've seen that he's really been the guy. And that's one of the things that I look for a lot is when you have a team that's out there, they're putting out, their G League guys, their end of the bench guys, trying to get some experience to them. Who becomes the guy out of that group? Like, who do they turn to? You can kind of see when players start to defer to somebody else. And that was very much Terance Mann in the minutes that he's been getting with the Clippers. Everybody has been deferring to him when it's not the starting group in. There's a very clear acceptance that this guy is on a different level. And given that the Clippers are, they're without Kawhi Leonard, so this is a nice move for them. They've got a guy with upside. They lock him up for a couple of years. And I think they're going to rely on him a lot. And given how much they're going to rely on him this season, the chances are very good that the price tag was only going up if you wait to sign him to an extension. So I think this is a great move.
Yeah, and so here's a couple of things with this too, because there was a good deal of confusion about this. So what they did was they picked up his team option for next year at about $1.9 million, which why that's important is they were wildly expensive for next year already, because you've got Paul George and Kawhi obviously at about $42.5 million a piece. Good work if you can get it. Yeah. You've got Reggie Jackson at 11.2, Luke Kennard 13.7, Marcus Morris 16.4, and so on and so forth. So they picked up his team option for $1.9 million for next year. This will actually kick in with the 23-24 season and 24-25. As far as I understand it, and that's when this will kick in. So I think that is pretty good, smart stuff by the Clippers front office to get them set to a place where, all right, we're kind of rebalancing our roster a little bit here. We'll figure some stuff out between now and then in the next year. And really important to keep a guy who became key. He was the reason they beat the Jazz, because he had that monster, couple games down the stretch. And as you said, he's only taken further steps forward. I'm starting to rethink a lot of things about the Clippers. No, I don't want to go crazy.
Right.
It's not that they're going to be title contenders now without Kawhi and all this stuff, but I kind of had Mann still penciled into a similar type role that he had before, and now I'm kind of thinking he might be their Kawhi replacement, where it's now he's the guy who slides in there and gets a lot of those touches and does a lot of the similar stuff. No, he's not Kawhi. He's not nearly as good, but I think he's better than Luke Kennard. I think he's better than Justice Winslow. And I think he's a better fit alongside some of the other guys that they have on that team, like Paul George, Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, and the like.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, we had kind of looked at it as, Justice Winslow, right? Look, he's landing with the Clippers. He must be the guy that they're going to turn to in Kawhi's role. I think Terance Mann is their guy. I think he's the guy that they're going to look to. And it's not a one-for-one, apples-to-apples comparison in terms of what they do, the skill set that they bring, but I still think that this is a nice move for them, and I think that Terance Mann is going to have a really solid season. So, look, if you're having a fantasy draft in the next few days, maybe you want to look at snagging this guy at some point later in your draft.
Yeah, that is a good call right there. Look at that, man. We gave you Jordan Poole. Now
we're giving you Terance
Trevor's
Mann.
giving you Terance Mann. So go take that fantasy advice right to the bank.
Yep.
With that. All right. Let's see. So yeah. So sorry. Reacted in the moment. So Celtics now down Jaylen Brown and now Horford, both with the COVID stuff. So let's see. They were hopeful that Brown would be back for opening night. Probably not Horford now, given that's only 8 days away. So I'm guessing they're going to be without a big part of their rotation on opening night there. And then who knows if this comes to somebody else, right? That's right. The thing with COVID. You kind of don't know because it can take, a handful of days to show up on testing and the like and all that. As far as, and everyone's going to ask, was Horford vaccinated or not? I believe he was. I want to say he said he was, but don't take that,
right.
fully with that because I'm not entirely sure. So we'll see. But it's a little messy.
Well, and unfortunately, it's going to be another season where this is what we're going to have to deal with, right? Throughout the season is we're going to have to deal with these positive tests popping up and things like that.
Yeah.
And, hopefully, obviously, the primary concern, number one, for anything else, before we worry about rotations or rosters or anything like that, is hopefully he's healthy and fine and everything is great there, right? I mean, that's always concern number one. And then from there, you look at, okay, what do the Celtics do now to replace him? Can he maybe be back by opening night? What's that going to look like?
Yeah.
All of that sort of stuff. Because I think he is going to be an important piece. It's not like he's
huge.
He's going to be important. It's not like he's irreplaceable or anything. He's not Jaylen Brown. He's not Jason Tatum. But I think he really does matter to this Celtics team. And so getting him back, getting him healthy is going to be important for them.
Well, and I think if you watched when they played the Raptors the other night, he had one of those kind of signature Al Horford plays. He gets switched on to Fred VanVleet. He blocked VanVleet's jumper on the perimeter, and then he ran out after it. And then they flipped it forward, and then they hit him on the kick ahead for a run out dunk. And it was like, that's something that this team didn't have out of big men before. Like, he's just there. They're running a ton of stuff through him to help ease that playmaking burden off Brown and Tatum and free them up. So it's a big loss for the Celtics. Even if he didn't start, which was still in question, he was going to play 25, 30 minutes a night anyway. Most games. So let's see what comes of this from there. So
all right,
you want to run through some transactions?
Let's do it.
All right, you shout when you want to stop and get a word in here.
Cool.
There's a lot.
I'm gonna let you run through most of it, but there's a few guys that we'll stop and talk about.
All right. Well, we'll stop and talk about this first one off the bat. Atlanta Hawks. I'm just doing this alphabetical by city because that's how my document's laid out. They waived Jahlil Okafor. They signed Ibi Watson. Ibi Watson was signed as an affiliate rights guy to get him to the College Park Skyhawks of the G League. But Jahlil Okafor, I at least thought he had a good chance to maybe make the team out of camp because they were dealing with injuries to Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella. But apparently not. He's not going to make it. Maybe Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot now snags that last spot for the Hawks.
Well, and we talked about this too. They weren't really using him at his best, right? They weren't giving him post-up opportunities. They were asking him to be something that he isn't really. And maybe what he is just, this has been the thing for years with him, but maybe what he is just isn't what the NBA is looking for out of bigs anymore. But still, it's not a surprise that he was waived when I saw the way they were utilizing him. It was an interesting, Okafor to the Hawks. Could he stick? Could he, going to be something there? But when I saw the way they were using him, it just didn't make sense to keep him around.
And, I thought too, probably what factors in is John Collins showing he can handle minutes at the 5 throughout last season's late season run and then in the playoffs. I think that makes a difference here because now you've got Gorgui Dieng there. You've got Collins that can do that. And then hopefully Okongwu and Capella both are ready to go here sooner rather than later.
Right.
All right, Brooklyn, this is a prime example of the roster shuffling that happens at the end. And they had signed Bryce Brown and Josh Gray. Both of them waived almost immediately. And then they brought in Jordan Bowden and Brandon Rahal. And those two guys are coming in and they're going to take in they're all designed to get to the Long Island Nets of the G League there. Chicago Bulls waived Daniel Oturu, who could maybe shown a little bit of stuff there, and Ethan Thompson waived out of there. These ones are a little bit more interesting, I think, out of Cleveland. Fiondu Kabengele, who I think we all thought had some potential. He's a former first-round pick by the Clippers and shown a little bit. He got waived by the Cavs, and then Broderick Thomas, who had shown some stuff in Summer League this past year, and he was on a two-way with Cleveland. Last year was on another two-way. He's been waived. So Cavs have a lot of guys they're kind of picking from at the back end of that roster. The Denver Nuggets, we already talked about Matt Ryan getting waived and returning back to the Atlanta Falcons. And then I keep wanting to call him Giorgio. It's Georgi Bezhanashvili.
Nice.
That was good.
That was really good.
He's out of Illinois. Both these guys set up to go to the Grand Rapids Gold of the G League, which is the Nuggets' new G League affiliate. We talked Terance Mann. We talked Sekou Doumbouya. Milwaukee Bucks waived Johnny O'Bryant, who returned after a few years overseas, and they re-signed Jamario Jones. Jamario Jones, you know him. He's a former Laker.
Yep.
Once upon a time.
Good rebounder for a guard.
He's good. Yeah, really gets after it. He's a tough kid. He's kind of your standard G League guy, where he's pretty good in the G League, but he's just not good enough to cut it in the NBA. But they're bringing him back in. We'll see what happens with O'Brien. I don't know that he'll necessarily show up in the G League because he's made a lot of money overseas and looked a little bit better. But if his real goal is to get back to the NBA, maybe he does take that path. We'll see. The New York Knicks waived Tyler Hall, re-signed Miles Powell. Powell's a Seton Hall guy, big-time scorer in college. He is going to go, both of them will ultimately land with Westchester in the G League. The Thunder waived Rob Edwards, who's a guard. They signed and then waived Jalen Horford. I put that one out while we were recording as well. So just pulling double duty here. The Orlando Magic, Jeremiah Tillman was waived. They re-signed Devin Kennedy. Devin Kennedy was interesting. He was, if you remember, at the end of last season, the Magic had no point guards left. Everybody was injured, and Kennedy was going to get a bunch of minutes for them. And then I can't remember if he sprained or if it was one of those sprains where it would have been better off if he had broken his ankle. He got hurt, and now he is out or back rather with the Magic to get another round. But he'll be with the Lakeland Magic in the G League. And then the Spurs. Did we talk about them waiving Luka Samanic?
No, I don't believe we did.
And we didn't. So that one's definitely a surprise because that's a former first-round pick by the Spurs. So they waived him here in year 3. So obviously when that happens too, just like it did with Sekou Doumbouya with the Nets, well, ultimately the Rockets, I guess, waived him. That 4th-year team option is considered declined as well. If it's a player option, the player has the right before the waiver to pick it up. They always do because
why wouldn't they?
Why not take that money? But yeah, so Samanic waived. That one's a little odd to me because I thought he had kind of shown some stuff. But Spurs they had to eat at least 2 guaranteed salaries, and Samanic is the first one.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a bit of a surprise. I mean, we talked about all these different moves that are going to be coming from NBA teams. That in and of itself is not that much of a surprise that there's all this roster shuffling going on right now. But I am a little bit surprised about Simonic. I didn't think that he was. I thought he was going to be a guy that would stick around, and I guess the Spurs thought otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, he'll pop up somewhere. I'm guessing. So someone is going to bring him in. Some rebuilding team that could use a big with some range.
Just to give you guys a little inside info here. No, there's no earthquake going on. My daughter, who thinks that she's a ninja, has successfully been able to stay off camera, but apparently not enough to not move my camera while she is ninjaing around on the floor and everything. So yeah, perfect. Just that's the perils of recording with a 5-year-old in the room.
And as it got noticeably darker for me, it just we have one of our Florida afternoon thunderstorms is rolling in. So yeah, it's yeah, that's we're both dealing
that's
with
right.
Some stuff here. We're working through it though. We're working hard for you guys. But these I know it feels like some of these moves are a lot of more so on Twitter. We get a lot of what, who?
Right, yeah,
like all those things. But these things do matter. There's a reason why these teams do these things because they want to keep these guys in their system. So when you see that they signed and waived somebody, it doesn't mean that they're just goofing around to get rid of the guy. They're bringing them in because they really want to have them be a part of the kind of the program, if you will, have them be part of it. So here we are with this time of year, and there's still tons more in my plan for tomorrow. If you follow me on Twitter, which if you don't, please
make sure you do.
It'd be
at
nice
Keith Smith NBA.
Yeah, I mean, as it says on the screen. And I will. I'm going to do like a running thread of like where each team is at roster wise and all that stuff if I have time tomorrow.
That sounds good. We'll be looking out for that. Anything else we need to get into today before we call it a wrap?
Sam Amick reported that the Sixers have no interest in trading for Kyrie Irving at the moment.
So I like that little thing in there. No interest at the moment. Oh, wait, 2 minutes later. Wait, okay. Now at this moment, we do have interest, right? So that's okay. Right. It's nothing until it's something there. But yeah, I'm not expecting Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons to swap places, even though it would seem to solve problems for both teams.
Yeah, but not going to happen.
All right, everybody. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show. Again, we've got a lot of fun stuff planned once the season does start up, which is coming. We're a week away from the official kickoff of the regular season. So we've got a lot going on. Make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to turn on notifications as well. Go follow Keith on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. He's obviously going to have a big thread coming out, hopefully tomorrow, fingers crossed. And if you guys want to follow me as well, you'll mostly get inundated by Lakers propaganda. But if you want to follow me as well, you can follow me at Trevor_Lane.
Oh, hey, well, you can't really see it, but I wore this shirt for you today. It says, "We beat LA." Yeah, I wore that for you, but then it was cold in here, so I threw on my my pullover.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you covering that up.
Yeah, no problem. You know what? That's better than the atrocious, horrid alternate jerseys the Celtics unveiled today. They're friggin' awful, and I hate them so much.
I'm going to sound like old man yelling at cloud, but can we please just go back to you wear your home jerseys at home, your road jerseys on the road. For the Lakers, you wear your Sunday whites, and then throw in a few alternates every now and then. Can we just do?
Yeah, you want to have special Christmas ones? Yeah, and I don't mind the black.
Yeah, those aren't bad
ones. I think they're kind of sharp. If you want to wear those, but not. It shouldn't be that you're splitting the season between wearing each of them 4 different times or whatever. Yep. But yes, that's this has been Trevor and Keith B.
That's right. All right, everybody. It is here it's about 4:20. That means I got to get ready for dinner since I'm old. So. All right, guys. Have a good one. Make sure you do subscribe. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.